China is not a democracy, it's a one-party state. The government holds the ultimate power. The future stability of China is one of the main assets of this country in continuing to attract foreign direct investment.
It's not quite an even relationship. When we enforce our contract, we have to remember we're guests here in this exciting economy.
Some companies come in, do a project and leave and don't have to deal with the consequences. Whereas we've got a 20-year track record now. We are seen in the market here as someone who's here for the long haul. So we're respected by the government departments, the Ministry of Construction, the various city authorities. They know our name.
These people are fundamental to the fabrication of their cities. They are their cities. And therefore, we do business in their cities with their support. It would be wrong of us to say, we understand you want to do it this way, but this is our standard.
A clear metric that they have to attract foreign investment, but it's certainly something that they all aspire to. It's partly an element of status.
If I took Hubei district government as an example, they knew that we'd set up a joint venture company, which is why we originally went to talk to them in Chongqing. They actually made a point of saying that they didn't want to work with the joint venture company, but they wanted to work with the foreign side of the joint venture company.
Chinese local governments like to attract foreign investment. Why? Because it brings the standards of technology up, it absorbs labour, and it's good for the local community.
It's much better now if you can set up with a wholly foreign-owned entity, which you still need to have partnership relationships with Chinese government, Chinese businesses, the Chinese consumers. But those relationships are often better placed at arm's length contractual relationships rather than having them within a joint venture within your board.
A good solid contract is a starting place, but one can't go without the other. Relationships in China are very, very important. That is the same whether it be a government relationship or a vendor relationship. We need to be seen to be open. We need to be able to be seen to be able to take advice, take criticism. Some of these people in cities or in our vendors have a lot of experience, and it would be wrong of us to say we're big, we're international, stand back.
Everybody wants a contract. Generally, nobody keeps their contract once it's been signed. That's the difference. In our business, we are paid according to a schedule in the contract, so that's quite important. The contract schedule for payments is more important than sending invoices.
You know, a lot of what I read in the West is spin and hype. There is a legal framework for doing business here. You need lawyers, you negotiate a contract, it's binding. If people break it, you can take them to court and sue them and get your money. So that system exists. Again, my experience is Shanghai, not throughout China, so I can't vouch for how it works elsewhere. How you get to the point of contract, that may be a different process. And I would urge anybody who's thinking about setting up business here, understand the process.
The government provided all the assistance we needed, together with some of the network that we'd built up in Chengdu. So there's other people in the city who we called upon for advice and guidance.
I never advise companies to rely on any one guanxi. You need a network of guanxi. If you're looking at any given issue or given industry or something and you want to know something about it, you wouldn't rely on necessarily one person. You can by all means lobby at the highest levels of the political system, but if you haven't won over the people at the working level, I think the bureaucracy can come back and bite you.
It's not just I got guanxi, I'm a friend with the minister, therefore I can do business. You've got to have all the proper basis for your business and make the proper commercial decisions you'd make elsewhere. On top of that, because so much of your business decisions and your future approvals tie in with the government, it is important to maintain good relations with those people who are going to give you those approvals. It's just they seem to be more, because the state is more present, you seem to have more of those relations than you would in other countries.
I always think even in a joint venture situation, for example, if the relationship isn't good, you're not going to be able to sense what the sort of major concerns of your partner are, and eventually what you might end up doing is ending up with a situation where there's a vote at the board meeting and you've already got a confrontational situation then. And so you want to try and avoid any direct confrontation.
We have lots of different departments that we have to deal with.
And in each government department there's an awful lot of people, so managing those relationships is quite a challenge.
For instance, our accountant, if she's obtaining a tax certificate so we can transfer our money back to the UK, she can end up going to 9 different tax departments and government departments to actually obtain one certificate. That tells you that the bureaucracy is quite high. There's a lot of government departments that are interrelated but don't seem to talk to each other.
But you find that in any country in the world. The issue for retailers and for anybody doing business really is to understand what the issues are, and then to understand the way that you can work with the government or work in the legal framework of the country you're in to overcome those obstacles.
You probably have to understand when you're lobbying against a given regulation that you understand where the opposing side is coming from, and then find organisations that have influence over them. And that involves a knowledge of the Chinese government system and the party system. And by doing that you can often insure yourself or protect yourself against such occurrences happening.
Very few hostile takeovers in China. It's simply not really the done thing. The state, both at central level and local level, still plays a very big part in business life here. And if there's an understanding that a business is supported by a local government, then that does have business benefits to it.
The Chinese partner have been very useful on many occasions, for example in providing funds locally in China. That's something that maybe a lot of people don't realise, but a lot of these big state-owned companies have got easy access to funds. And if you're a small joint venture or wholly owned company, getting local borrowing can be very difficult. It's certainly not impossible because I've done it. We borrowed like 16 million renminbi and it was basically an unsecured loan.
China's very good at getting money into China, but they've got this idea that money should not leave China once it's here, which makes it very difficult for foreign investors.
I would also always look at what's happening on the regulatory side of the economy. It depends probably how regulated each sector is, but what I would do is take a snapshot and say, well, are there new policies and regulations likely to support growth in that sector or hinder growth? And that will inform. And that's often overlooked, actually, surprisingly, in market research.
And also the Chinese government themselves still have guidelines as to which sectors you can do business in.
If you think where China's come from, they've had to develop a robust company, criminal, civil, legal system to support this incredible growing economy, and they've had to do it in an incredibly short period.
The regulatory framework does change quite regularly, but often it's to the foreigner's advantage. And if you think of the bigger picture, is China is trying to comply with its WTO obligations, but there are often small rules and regulations that catch out the small manufacturer, and that you need to often deal with your local government.
Projects generally, particularly government projects, generally move forward because of personality rather than policy. Policy can be got round in China. It will be thrown at us at every given opportunity. It depends who you're dealing with in the government as to whether their personality is strong enough, whether they're high enough up the ladder to change that policy. You do get into a position in China where you get used to doing things quickly, and then you come up against some policy that's not changed.
This country is reforming at breakneck speed, or say just below breakneck speed. It can't go faster than that.
We were having problems after we signed our joint venture agreement in actually obtaining all our business licenses and taxation licenses and so on. And it got to a point where I asked the British consulate in Chongqing to intervene and talk to the high-level officials in the government here, rather than me talking to them, which the consulate did in Chongqing. And because it's a foreign government talking to the Chinese government, within 3 days everything was sorted out.